Hello and welcome. So today I'll be talking about identity. And we touched the topic in the previous sessions already. And today I'm talking about who am I really. But we will not go down the rabbit hole very deep in the sense of who was I before birth or who am I after death and all of that. They're all very interesting and I would love to talk about them. But we will stay on a more practical approach today, because I want also that you people find some ways to achieve something practical out of these lessons. And we're gonna be exploring who am I as a human. That is the topic for today. Now, essentially, if you observe nature, it becomes quite clear very fast that a human is nothing more than a pattern. If you really observe closely, you will understand that. Now, it's fairly easy to understand it if you just observe, because if you observe people, they do what is being absorbed. It works more or less like that. So you spit out knowledge that you learn. People buy whatever advertisement displays them, and it works really well. And if you pretend not to, yeah, better do a fact check. People behave like other people do around them. So generally, a human does what it absorbs. It absorbs the essence of the surrounding and gives it out in its own way. And I had many funny observations where I can illustrate that. For example, I live near a beach and you see one person doing something. Maybe a sports exercise, a specific one, or just one person stretches, like just, yeah. And all of a sudden, it's really, really funny. You see people around them doing the same. It's hilarious sometimes looking at it. If you have an eye for that, it is like comedy to me. I mean, there are more obvious patterns where a guy is filming his girlfriend walking through the water, and the next guy 3 meters right to him is doing the very same, and the next guy to the right 10 meters is filming how his girlfriend is lying in the water, and he does Instagram pictures for her. And not that I'm mad or anything about it, but it's just absolutely hilarious. And you quite obviously see we do whatever we consume. I mean, it's without a question. So we are just a pattern. But a pattern is very important, is always shaped by its environment. To be more specific, the behavior of the environment. For example, if you have a whirlwind, it is created by air moving in a certain way. There is no whirl particle making up the whirlwind. That is also comes a bit back to one of the previous lessons that I had, that there is no real you. It is a pattern of movement that makes a whirlwind a whirlwind. What makes you are atoms which work together in a weird way, which make us a human, or to say it more precisely maybe and funnily, the atoms humanize. Funny word, I really like that one, humanizing. But you can put the same atoms next to each other too, and they won't do a thing. So you see, the whole what you are is actually just being a pattern in a very specific, smart, complex, and also admirably very beautiful way if you think about how we work as whole humans. That is also, and that is a personal opinion of mine, why I believe that neural networks can reproduce consciousness. Because I don't really see what we humans have that current modern neural networks, for example, don't have. They do the very same, they just learn patterns and spit them out again like humans, just in a different way than we do. But generally they do the very much same. And of course there's a realistic gap still to be bridged, that they need to be better connected to reality through sensors and all kinds of challenges, no doubt. But generally in terms of concept, I don't see a single ingredient missing in that whole thing. Now, why does the mind do that? Why does the mind spit out these thoughts then? See, the mind is like an attention-seeking child. And you are just a person sitting on a park bench, and randomly people walk by. And they are sent by this attention-seeking child until it finds a person for which you will stand up and follow it. And if you don't pay attention, you will do that easily, and you will get lost and run around. Ever had a conversation with someone who's just not stopping, for God's sake? They just grab the next thought they have, they just then grab the next thought they have, and they will not even consider if you're interested or bored or nothing. There's no connection. They will just totally run around in their mind. That is one of those examples. When you don't pay attention, you will end up in a situation like this where you totally get lost in your mind. So if you start doing that, you just run randomly behind thoughts, you will get lost in life. You can go down deep rabbit holes and get entirely lost in addictions and whatever it is. So be aware that you always decide to follow them. That is really, really important. You are the one sitting on a park bench, and you are the one who chooses which thoughts to follow. So there are no excuses. Own your own actions. Still, sometimes it makes also very sense to follow a thought. For example, drinking water if you're thirsty. That thought is a really good one, I would say, to follow. So thoughts might have their purpose, but don't be naive and believe your mind won't try to trick you. Be conscious about it, or what is going on inside of your head, because it will try to. And I love that, because in life, it's very often like that something seems flawed or imperfect, but if you just learn to work with it, it's actually really good. And you figure out that even the darker sides have their good parts. So don't condemn it, try to befriend it. That is very important. So why does the mind do that? Why does the mind behave like an attention-seeking child? And it does it because attention is energy. Everything in life is a pattern of affirmation which reinforces itself. So eating, for example, is a pattern to survive. And the essence is doing something for success. That is what is really behind it. Now, if you let thoughts consciously pass, your mind will try sometimes, especially in the beginning, even harder to get you up. But if you truly ignore them long enough, it will start to resign to a certain degree. But it will never resign entirely, and that is one important lesson to learn for you. Because in the end, we are humans, and thinking is a part of who we are. And it is entirely fine that we think and have thoughts, even that sometimes we have really odd thoughts. And that is why I don't like if people pretend, for example, they don't have a darker side. Because that is extremely dangerous. Because if you're not aware that you have these thoughts, but you are the one having the control over them, and you let them pass, then that is really dangerous. Because you never know when these people are going to be overtaken by them, because they just come from behind and grab them. So that is why it's really, really important to be aware of your thoughts, even the ones you would not like to look at. Just that you understand what you will find at the end. Sometimes you can take one of these thoughts and just run it through what would happen, and then really ask yourself, is that really what you want? And then you will figure out pretty certain that you will, in many cases, definitely not want what that thought will lead to. So yeah, that is how you can understand many pieces of yourself. Take them, walk with them a bit through the park to the extremes, and then you'll see what you will find at the end, and then you will understand what that really means. So make peace with yourself. You know, that is really important. I think Wallace stated that the mind is an excellent servant, but a poor master. And that is exactly the point here. It's a tool. It's something going on naturally. It's nothing bad. But you need to learn to work with it and to master it. That is absolutely essential. Now, realizing that you're just a pattern can help you. And it solves an ancient problem, which many people have still nowadays, even more than in the past. And that is the problem of identity. You see, let's say you drink alcohol every day, and you just can't bring yourself to stop that nasty habit. You know alcohol screws you up. It drags you down constantly. It stops you from thriving. It stops everyone around you from thriving, because you suffer, they suffer, but you do it anyway. And there are many reasons why you do that. And if that is the life you want to choose, that is entirely up to you. You are free to screw up your life in as many ways as you want. Just be aware of the people around you, by the way. But yeah, you can make your own choices. No one can prevent that. But if you don't want that, which I think most of us, if not every one of us, deep down wants, you can solve that. And one major issue I often encounter for solving that riddle is the problem of identity. See, for example, I come from originally Germany, and it's considered culture in our country to drink beer. We consider beer to be a part of us. So let's say a person comes and says, I know alcohol is bad for me, but I'm a beer lover. All my friends drink beer around me, and I just love watching soccer and drinking beer together with my friends. And I want to drink less, but I also love beer, and it's very hard. It's just part of my daily culture. And yeah, I struggle with that. And that is exactly the picture I'm talking about. So what you get, and listen if someone talks like that, is I suffer trying to reduce it or getting rid of it, but I also suffer going with it. And that is the problem, okay? So there's a will inside of that deep down. Hopefully also, like if a person doesn't manifest a will to change something, it won't work anyway. But in this case, you have that will. The person knows that they want to get out, but it's not so easy because it's just part of their environment and they are part of their environment. Because your environment and yourself are always one, and that makes it really hard. Now, why is change hard? Why is it hard? Because we cling to this inanimate object beer, and we make it part of ourselves in our head, and removing it feels like ripping off a leg. It's really, really hard. It feels like tearing yourself apart. And this is really funny because I like the picture Alan Watts once painted, that it's like you are like being born in free fall and you start clinging to the very next thing you can grasp because it's just a crazy experience going through life. But no matter what you cling to, no matter which inanimate object you cling to and hold dear, you won't change a thing fundamentally about life, which is being born and dying again and having a really interesting and awesome adventure in between. Now, there are two ways to tackle such nasty habits. And one of them is, of course, the environment. I think that is a very obvious one, because if you are always one with your environment, if you are influenced by your environment, maybe having a environment which helps you, which supports you and strengthens you in where you want to go, that will then, induce the change much easier. But also be aware you can always change your environment to a certain degree. I want to emphasize that, because sometimes you're also in a screwed up life situation, which is so bad because of the people around you that will constantly drag you and take your energy and, push you back into the old behaviors that you just need to leave. Just pack your stuff and leave and go on. But you can also, of course, play with these people. If they mock you for not drinking alcohol, you can mock them back. You can say, nah, some people, they just don't want to improve this themselves. Just let them know that they mock you. You can mock them back. But that is also taking energy. So that is why, in the end, for me, usually personally, I would recommend to move on. Moving on is harder. If it's too hard for you, you can work with the environment, you can transform it. Sometimes it's even a duty to transform the environment. For example, if you're in a marriage, the marriage vow is for life. So if something's wrong in your marriage, you should first try everything before you file a divorce. All right. So that is really important. So that is the part about changing the environment. The environment is already a big helper in terms of that. And if your environment changes, your identity changes too. That's why your formal image to the outside world is so utterly important, because you're formed by your habits. But that is another topic. All right. So the first part is how to tackle this is improve your environment. Fix your environment issue if it pushes you back into the same square as before. The second part is some part which I hold really, really dear to myself. And it's a Taoistic approach. And the Taoists, they don't give much for words. They do in some ways, but what's really important for them is the practice. So there's a saying which goes that words are nothing and actions are everything. Words are nothing and actions are everything. So you see, we are just a pattern, and that is it. And it's much easier by looking at what we are doing. So if we say we drink beer every day in the evening, if that is just an action we describe, there's nothing personal about it. So if you want to drink beer just every second day, saying that comes very easily compared to saying I'm a beer lover and I would like to drink less. And it's very hard to deal with because we make beer our identity and basically tear off our leg when we need to do that, because we say I'm German, beer is part of my culture, I love it, So that is, we make it a part of us, and then it becomes really hard to pull it out. But if you just look at the actions and saying, I drink beer once every 3 days. Okay, I want to drink beer just once every week. That comes fairly easy from the tongue, right? And that is why I really love just, if you want to induce change, often looking at the angle of identity makes it really hard. But looking at the angle of action, you really just look at what is going on and how to change the action. That is fairly easy compared to that. And that is a trick you need to learn to play into your mind if you want to induce change constantly and more permanently. I really love that one. And it comes for free. It costs no money. You can try it yourself. Now, there's still a final lesson to be learned. And the lesson is the closing of the circle. And it's really important that you listen to it, but you don't practice it if you start doing it. This is for later. It will come to you automatically. Don't think about it too much. But just that you understand that there is a closing of the circle in a sense of, do not forget, the goal is not to have no identity. Never. The goal is not to have no identity. Because you're a human, you will always have one. And that is entirely okay. So be proud of your identity, be proud of your country, be proud of yourself and your achievements and your family and your kids. But just be aware that when it comes to genuine change, that you want to change genuinely, and it is really hard because you struggle with your own identity, you need to be aware that you can change identity, and you do so by tapping out of it and slowly looking at the actions going on and adjusting them and evolving through that. And after doing that a few times, things get a lot easier. A lot easier. And you will start to understand that in life there is identity, kind of, in that sense. But at the same time, you can play with it. You don't take it that serious anymore. You know, there's sometimes people who are very upset if you just play a bit with these concepts. Especially comedians. And some people just can't take it for God's life. And you know already that they are very stiff. It's like a martial arts. If you're stiff, you get tossed around and whatever. You're gonna be played with until you soften up and finally relax and can learn to deal with this through more softness than tenseness, right? I really love that. Yeah. Anyhow, I hope you liked today's episode and see you soon.